the difference between unilateral movement and bilateral movement. Now, first things first is unilateral movement essentially just uses one arm to move the weight, whereas bilateral movements use two arms to move the weight. So for example, if we're doing a shoulder press, we might be just doing one arm, and if we're doing a military press, we might be doing two arms. So both arms versus one arm. And when it comes to exercise programming, rehab, and things like that, the most important thing to realize is to strengthen or load the side that's injured. That's how we get things stronger, is by loading the side of injury. So for example, if my right shoulder is injured, if we don't load it, if we don't add exercise to it, we're not going to strengthen it, right? Because the only way to strengthen it is through load. That being said, when we add bilateral or both sides movements, we're creating a lot of symmetry, but we're also using the other side to help stabilize. So they both have their benefits and they both have a disadvantage. One of the benefits for bilateral or both arm movements, like a shoulder press, would be for stabilization for both sides and more for symmetry. Whereas the unilateral movements, typically it could be a row, it could be a push press, whatever it may be, is that you're going to be locking down one side. That's going to force rotation around a plane, and when you force rotation around a plane, you're going to end up creating a lot more stability and core strengthening. The one important thing to realize about unilateral movements that I think are sometimes more important is that you end up requiring so much more core movement and stabilization, because you can cheat with two hands, you can't cheat with one. So if I have to push a bar upwards like this and I need to have the strength, this side that's not weak might actually be pushing a little bit harder to jeopardize for this. So if I'm pushing 40 pounds on here and 35 pounds on here, that's 75 pounds, we might get the bar and the load up. But if I have 40 pounds here and 40 pounds here, or 30, I'm not going to be able to push up as high, right? Because I'm not going to be able to do that because this side is weaker, right? So what that does, that forces our body to really isolate the areas and focus on the areas that are injured. So for rehabilitation purposes, exercise purposes, or even if I'm in a time crunch, if I want to spend 40 minutes at a gym instead of 50, I might just do unilateral or one-side movements to help develop my core and to stabilize one side so that I can get my gym and my exercises done faster. So that's really the difference and the similarities between unilateral movements and bilateral movements. For rehab purposes, guys, and for efficiency purposes, I like unilateral or one-sided movements. I do think that they are better, but they also both should be playing an integral role in your rehab process and strength training process.